Flashback to Interior Midway Island Radio Station July 4th, night, day 2. At Midway Island, radio operators listen intently. Their equipment buzzes with static as they tune into Amelia's primary transmit frequency. They jot down notes and exchange excited glances. Midway Island Operator 1 says,
"Did you hear that? It's faint but coming in on her carrier."
Exterior Pan American Station, Mokapu Point July 4th, night. Operators at Mokapu Point, Oahu, part of the Pan American network, feverishly adjust their equipment. They exchange information with Midway Island via telegraph. The operator's fingers dance across the Morse code key, sending out the message into the night. Mokapu Point operator says,
"Midway confirms. Signal originating near McKean Island and Gardner Island in the Phoenix Group."
Interior U.S. Navy War Room, Honolulu, night. Admirals and officers monitor the situation. A large backlit map of the Pacific Ocean is being marked up on the wall. They exchange intense discussions as new information comes in. Naval officer says,
"Based on this new information, it's likely Earhart and Noonan turned southeast after failing to find Howland Island in an attempt to reach the nearest land."
Interior U.S. Colorado Navy Vessel, Radio Room, night. The radio room aboard the USS Colorado hums with activity. Operators prepare to change course.
"Captain Friedel, this just in from headquarters. Colorado, change course to Phoenix Group. Commence air search as soon as practicable."
Colorado Captain Wilhelm F. Friedel says,
"Consulting a map on the wall, set course. We'll start here, at Winslow Reef, say of Howland Island. All ahead full."
Cut to Interior Uskaitasca, Radio Room, night. The radio room on the Uskaitasca is filled with tension as they continue searching the waters north of Howland Island. Unaware of the developments, they maintain their vigil.
"Still no contact."
"I'm sure she's here. I can feel it. I'll be topside. The more eyes scanning the seas, the better. Carry on."
Unbeknownst to the Itasca crew, their focus remains on the wrong location. The clock ticks and the search for Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan intensifies as radio signals crisscross the Pacific, connecting distant stations in a race against time. Back to present. Interior Hull Island Radio Shack, day. Bruce tries to breathe some life into the damaged radio by smacking it on the side. He hemorrhages a set of expletives. Rick Haywood can't hear Bruce's frustrated tirade, but having seen the flare, he knows Bruce can listen to him. Rick Haywood, OS, says,
"I know you can hear me. Let me tell you a story about your wife, Bruce."
Flashback to Exterior Groton Airfield, Mystic, Connecticut, 10 years ago, day. At the small airport where Sky's mother is pre-flighting a Cessna 172 equipped with pontoons parked on the flight line. She checks the main fuel line to complete her pre-flight check. She leaves the engine cowling open to use the restroom before her solo flight. This time, a younger version of the captain is seen nefariously disconnecting the fuel line and closes the engine cover. When Sky's mother returns to climb aboard, she notes that the engine cowling is closed. She cocks her head inquisitively, looks around, shrugs, and latches it. She takes off, and upon climb out, her engine stalls. She attempts a water landing, and the plane flips upside down. It comes to rest in a shallow lagoon. This time we see the younger captain is the first to arrive on the scene. Clearly, he could do something to save the struggling woman, but he stands by and watches her sink into the lagoon, where she ultimately drowns. Back to present. Interior Hull Island Radio Shack, day. Bruce is alone in the radio shack, fuming with rage at the broadcast from Rick that he's been listening to.
"That's right. I could have saved her, Bruce. I could have saved her, but then you'd have this ship, and I never would have found this plane. Thank your daughter for me, Bruce."
Bruce screams in frustration and sweeps equipment off the small desk. It crashes to the ground with a deafening clash of metal. He turns toward the door. We see Sky standing in the threshold. We don't know how long she's been listening, but her eyes are wet, and she has a look that is both sadness and empathy for her father. Exterior Hull Island. Escape, day. The sun beats down on Hull Island. The remote atoll in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean seems a world away from their home in Connecticut. Sky stands on the pristine beach. Her father joins her, standing at her side. His rugged merchant marine sailor demeanor is close to the boiling point. They watch in disbelief as the businessman's salvage ship, that sailor of fortune, disappears into the distant horizon.
"That snake. I told you he's a pirate. He's left us stranded on this forsaken island."
Sky gazes at the ship, frustration and desperation etched on her face.
"He just let Mom die. He was there. He could have saved her."
Sky's voice trails off. Bruce puts his arm around his daughter. They look out over the sea. A moment passes. Neither of them speak. Act I. Sky knows that they need to act fast. She breaks the silence.
"Dad, we can't let him get away with this."
Bruce nods, his sailor instincts kicking in.
"How? That radio is a piece of shit. This island is deserted. The boat is gone. How do we catch up with that ship?
Sky's eyes dart around, and she spots something in the distance beyond a grove of palm trees, the atoll's lagoon. She bolts towards it, leaving her father momentarily puzzled.
Sky, where are you going?
Sky reaches the lagoon and comes to a halt. She takes a deep breath and looks back at her father with newfound determination.
Dad, I've got an idea. Stay with me on this.
Sky rushes towards a small pontoon Cessna 172 seaplane hidden in the foliage near the lagoon. Bruce's eyes widen as he watches his daughter with a mixture of surprise and dread.
Sky, you can't fly that.
Sky starts up the Cessna's engine with a mischievous grin.
Surprise, Dad. I sure can. I've been taking flying lessons with Grandpa. This plane's too small to reach the mainland, but trust me, we can catch that boat.
Bruce climbs aboard the Cessna, and they taxi towards the lagoon's edge, the plane's pontoons skimming the water.
All right, Sky, let's catch that asshat and get back Amelia's plane.
Sky nods, her hands steady on the controls. The Cessna roars to life and takes off gracefully from the lagoon, soaring into the open sky. Exterior Pacific Ocean. Above the Sailor of Fortune. Day. The Cessna gains altitude, closing in on the Sailor of Fortune. Sky and Bruce can see the ship on the horizon and the storm clouds gathering in the distance.
We're going to make it, Dad. We'll touch down ahead of the ship before that storm hits.
As the Cessna flies closer to the ship, Bruce looks at his daughter, admiration in his eyes.
I always knew you were something special, Sky. Let's do this.
The Cessna speeds toward the Sailor of Fortune, ready to confront the double-crossing businessman and take matters into their own hands before the storm unleashes its fury upon them. Flashback to Interior St. Petersburg, Florida, 1937, Betty Clank's home, Day 4. In St. Petersburg, Florida, 15-year-old Betty Clank is home alone listening to the family's large console radio. As Betty listens, she doodles and jots down bits of information she hears in a notebook that she kept close by the radio set. She waits for her father to return from work. Idly, Betty tunes through the shortwave bands, tuning the set to the higher and higher frequencies, when she hears a woman's voice who sounds quite upset. Amelia, V.O., says,
"This is Amelia Earhart, help me."
Betty is stunned. She recognizes the voice. Shocked, she starts to jot down what she's hearing so she can tell her father. She hears a woman and a man trying to send what sounds like distress calls. At times, the man sounds irrational and delirious. He's sick or injured. Both voices sounded like they are under extreme physical and emotional stress. The words, letters, and numbers are coming from the radio speaker too fast for Betty to take down verbatim. She frantically copies down all that she can. Intercut. Interior Electra 10E cockpit, Gardner Island, Day 4. From within the Electra's cockpit, we can see the surf rising around the precariously perched plane. Amelia sits in the pilot's seat. Fred is trapped, confined to the stifling rear cabin, injured, delirious from a head injury and heat exhaustion. Amelia has been on the radio for hours. Amelia says,
"This is Amelia Earhart, help me. KGMB, or Howland Port, do you read? The water's high. Fred, do you hear Morse? Here, put your ear to it. This is Amelia Putman, this is Amelia Putman. SOS.
Amelia holds the mic toward Fred in the back. Fred says,
"Stop, Amelia."
Fred hears only static on the radio. He's frustrated and shouts at the machine. Fred says,
"Speak. Oh, uncle, oh."
Fred loses interest in the radio but keeps speaking to Amelia.
"It's a furnace back here. I need to get out. I can feel the water. It's cold. The plane is slipping. Can you feel it?"
Help us quick. Yes, I can feel it, you're right. Try to come out through the cabin. The passenger door is underwater."
Fred, OS, says,
"I can't reach the handle. If I can just..."
"Bob, I know it's hot, but don't go out. Come here just a moment. I could use your help with these coordinates. 58,338. Send us help."
Fred reaches toward the cabin from the space over the fuel tank. Amelia tries to hand him a flask of water. The water is rising.
"Amelia, I can't take it, you hear it. Help. I need air, Amelia. Things are so hot."
Fred tries to get up again and climb to the cabin.
"Here I come. Oh, let me out of here. Oh, my head. It was supposed to be different. I don't want to suffer, Amelia."
"Take it away, Howland. We can see the ship. Norwich City, Norwich City."
Marie, Norwich City, Norwich City. Oh, if they could hear me. Norwich City, Marie.
The water is higher now and the plane is rising off the reef. Intercut. Interior St. Petersburg, Florida. Betty Clank. Day 4. Betty's father arrives home from work. He unfurls and hangs his scarf on a coat rack by the door. Betty's father, OS, says,
"Hello, Betty, I'm home."
Betty Clank says,
Father, come listen, quick. Mrs. Amelia Earhart is on the radio.
Betty's father hurries from the front hall to the radio room. He hears the last part of this broadcast. Amelia, VO, says,
"It's going."
Betty's father recognizes the voice and looks at his daughter with a stunned look as he hunkers down to listen closely. Intercut. Interior Electra 10E cockpit, Gardner Island. Day 4. The plane shifts significantly on the reef.
Call the airport. Marie. Oh, where are you? The water's knee-deep, let me out.
Fred tries to open the blocked and jammed rear cargo door again.
"Where are you going? We can't bail out. See, the water's rising."
Yes, Amelia, yes. Oh, ouch.
"Are you so scared?"
Fred speaks. Unintelligible noises come from the back of the plane.
"What? Hello, bud."
Amelia puts her mouth to the radio mic again to transmit.
"This is Amelia Earhart."
Amelia fumbles with aeronautical charts, reading everything she can that might be of significance to someone.
South 391065E Figure 8. 3. 3500Z3E MJ3B Z38 Z13 8983638. Hurry. Are you there? Static.
Again, Amelia puts her mouth to the radio mic to transmit. Amelia says,
"Can you hear from me? Hear from me, George. Get the suitcase in my closet in California."
She speaks to Fred now.
"Are you okay?"
Fred reaches up for the radio mic.
Marie, hey, Marie, Amelia Earhart.
Amelia gets the radio back again.
"Hey, watch that battery."
What did you tell me to do?
SOS. Fred, will you help me? Will you please? We need to transmit. All right. What are you doing? 3QRD 36J3, KJQQ, Amelia here.
Fred interrupts Amelia's transmission attempt.
Quick, let me out. It's knee-deep over here.
Stop.
I can't make it.
Amelia hears Fred's voice and can't determine from where it's coming. She thinks he may be outside the airplane now as sea water fills the cabin. Amelia is forced to stand on the seat back and begins to exit through the overhead hatch.
Ha, are you here?
Amelia slips on the wet seat and curses profusely. The water is so high the plane is floating off its resting place, drifting in the surf. She can see the marooned shipwreck ahead of her run aground on the island. In one last desperate attempt, before she abandons the plane, she shouts one last phrase into the microphone that may help someone, anyone listening, to recognize her location. The only discernible landmark visible from the Electra on the remote Pacific atoll is the hull of the steamer ship SS Norwich City, which had run aground on Gardner Island's reef several years earlier in 1929.
Norwich City, Norwich City.
Cut to Interior St. Petersburg, Florida. Betty Clenk. Day 4. Night. Convinced that the radio transmission is genuine, Betty's father drives to the St. Petersburg Coast Guard station to report what he and his daughter have heard. A young, tired Coast Guard officer emerges from a building to greet the hurried visitor. Betty's father says,
"I've just picked up a distress call from Amelia Earhart herself on my shortwave. It's her. I can't believe it myself, but she's stranded on an island. She needs help."
He hands the man a piece of paper with part of the transcript that Betty has copied. The duty officer assures him that the Coast Guard already has a ship in the area and is on top of the situation. Coast Guard officer says,
"Yes, sir. The good ship Itasca is on the scene. I assure you they're doing all they can. She's in good hands. I'll pass along what you've heard. Indeed. Good night, sir."
Betty's father turns to leave. As he gets back into his 3-year-old 1934 Ford, he turns around to ask the officer one last thing.
"She said, Norwich City, Norwich City. Any idea what that could mean?"
The duty officer shakes his head. He waves to dismiss Betty's father. Cut to Interior Itasca Bridge, Pacific Ocean. Day. Captain Thompson gives orders to the ship's crew via the shipwide intercom.
"I want all eyes on the water, every able-bodied crew member to the deck. We are 281 miles north of Howland, precisely where reports indicate Amelia has come down. If she's still afloat at sea, we'll find her. Repeat, I want all eyes on the water."
Back to present. Exterior sailor of Fortune salvage ship. Day. The ship can be seen entering a haze. It vanishes into a localized storm, more powerful than the one they encountered days ago as they arrived. Intercut. Exterior sailor of Fortune ship deck, Pacific Ocean. Aboard the ship, the seas are rough. The Electra is sliding around the main deck. The captain struggles to secure it. Rick Haywood loses his cowboy hat in the wind as he climbs into the Electra's cockpit to tighten a fastener. The few deckhands aboard the ship are frantically moving about the deck, trying in vain to secure the historic plane. A massive wave sweeps the antique aircraft and several deckhands off the deck with the captain aboard. The sea swallows the plane again, and the Rick Haywood perishes like Sky's mother, trapped in the Electra's cockpit. Intercut. Interior Cessna cockpit, Pacific Ocean. Day. The cockpit of a small Cessna seaplane is cramped. Sweat condensates on the windows. From the pilot's seat, Sky clutches the airplane pendant of her necklace briefly and adjusts her David Clark headset. Her father sits in the co-pilot's seat, leaning forward to get a better view. Raindrops are beginning to pelt the windshield as dark storm clouds loom ahead.
We're losing sight of that ship, Sky. We can't afford to lose our reference point in this storm.
Sky's eyes dart between the ship, now barely visible through the thick haze, and the control panel.
Can anyone on that ship hear me?
Static crackles over the radio. No response.
They aren't listening, Sky. They're trying to save the ship from the storm. We need that ship as our guide.
Sky's determined expression turns to a light bulb moment. She dials the instrument to short-band radio frequencies.
What are you doing, Sky?
Sky reaches over to the radio controls and dials a specific high frequency at 30.1 MHz. She presses the transmitter button.
Sky to KGG. KGG, if you're out there, this is Sky, Sierra Kilo Yankee. I need your help. Over.
Static fills the cockpit. Sky anxiously awaits a response. Emma, off-screen. Radio, says.
Sky, is that you? What's going on?
Emma, we're in a Cessna over the Pacific, trying to follow a ship for navigation, but we're losing sight of it in the storm.
Emma, off-screen. Radio, says.
Sky, where are you? You're flying. Does your dad know?
Oh, he knows. Beat, can you give us a line of bearing from Hull Island to Honolulu? We need to get back on track.
Copy that, Sky. Stand by.
Sky and Bruce exchange nervous glances as they continue to navigate through the storm. Then, Emma's voice crackles back through the radio. Sky, take a heading of 30 degrees compass. Repeat, 30.
Copy, heading 30 degrees. Thanks, Emma.
Sky quickly calculates the local magnetic deviation and adjusts their course. The Cessna begins to bank to the left. Exterior Cessna seaplane, Pacific Ocean, day. The seaplane changes course, heading toward the northwest. The storm clouds begin to part, and they emerge into clearer skies. Interior Cessna seaplane cockpit, Pacific Ocean, day. Sky and Bruce share a triumphant look as the ship they had been following comes back into view, now visible through the dissipating haze.
Well done, Sky. Well done. Beat, looks like the ship is adrift down there. Is it listing? Think you can set us down close by?
Do we have a choice? We have a safe landing to make.
Sky pushes the yoke forward and begins to descend, following the landing procedure checklist she knows well. Flashback to exterior Electra 10E Gardner Island. We see the surf lift the Electra free of the reef. The plane slowly floats out over the deep water beyond the edge of the reef. Amelia climbs out of the floating aircraft and jumps into the water. We see her struggling to swim, distraught, yelling for Fred between gulps of seawater. Is he still trapped in the plane's cabin as it slowly slips below the ocean's surface? Amelia appears to lose her own battle against the rough sea and slips underwater out of sight. Back to present. Exterior Pacific Ocean, Cessna landing. Day. We see the pontoon Cessna seaplane descending from the sky, its engine roaring. The plane banks to the left, then to the right, as it lines up for its final approach to the rough ocean surface nearby the listing ship. Sky makes a messy landing, and the plane flips over its nose and comes to rest upside down in the rough sea. Bruce swims out of the cockpit and around to Sky's door. The scene is eerily similar to Sky's mother's ill-fated water landing, but Bruce is there for Sky. He forces the door open and pulls her out just as the plane sinks down out of sight. Bruce carries Sky in one arm as he swims to the nearby ship's low stern. He looks up at the empty deck under the crane.
Sky, look, the plane. Amelia's plane, it's gone.
Bruce pulls her up onto the stern of the salvage ship. Sky catches her breath as Bruce stands to gaze at the empty cargo deck where the Electra had been strapped down. Sky follows Bruce and the two stand together where the plane once was.
It's gone. It must have dislodged during the storm.
Sky notices something small, wet lodged against the rail of the ship. She approaches it and stoops to pick it up. We see that it's Rick's cowboy hat. Bruce isn't watching her and doesn't see it yet.
I think more may be missing than the plane.
Bruce turns toward Sky and sees the hat in her hands. They realize they are alone on the Sailor of Fortune. No Rick, no deckhands.
They must have been swept off trying to secure the plane. I'm so sorry about the Electra, Sky.
You know, Dad, sometimes, when you look really hard for something, you don't find what you're looking for. You find what you need.
Bruce smiles and embraces his daughter. Exterior Gardner Island shore, day. We see just the hand of a woman up onto the sand out of the breaking surf. At first, we think it to be the hand and arm of a dead body. Then, the fingers clench, digging into the sand. The hand pulls back through the dirt, signaling it belongs to an individual determined to survive. Exterior Corsair Search Squadron, July 9, 1937. The Colorado's 3 catapult-launched aircraft, under the command of Senior Aviator Lieutenant John O. Lambrecht, Pass over Gardner Island on the final day of an extensive search operation in the Phoenix Islands. Lambrecht's flyover of Gardner Island occurred on July 9 and lasts about 10 minutes. Lambrecht radios back to U.S. Colorado Captain Wilhelm F. Friedel and describes what he had observed there. Lt. John O. V.O. says,
Gardner is a typical example of your South Sea atoll. A narrow, circular strip of land surrounding a large lagoon. Most of this island is covered with tropical vegetation with, here and there, a grove of coconut palms. Here signs of recent habitation were clearly visible, markers of some kind. But repeated circling and zooming failed to elicit any answering wave from possible inhabitants, and it was finally taken for granted that none were there. It is not hard to believe that a forced landing could have been accomplished, on Gardner's Reef, with no more damage than a good barrier crash or a good wetting.
As the Corsair trio recedes into the horizon, the camera zooms out slowly until a pair of boots worn by a woman can be seen in the foreground. The woman is waking up as the Corsair flies out of sight. Amelia Earhart didn't see Lambrecht's squad, and they didn't see her. Back to present. Interior bridge of Sailor of Fortune ship, day. Sky and Bruce are on the bridge of the salvage ship. Bruce is at the helm.
I guess you're the skipper now, huh, Dad?
Bruce looks around the bridge, admiring the vessel.
Looks that way. You know.
A call from the radio interrupts him. Coast Guard radioman says,
This is the U.S. Coast Guard calling Sailor of Fortune. Do you read? Say status.
Bruce looks at the radio equipment, and notices the cable on the radio transmitter has been removed. He screws it back on.
This is Sailor of Fortune, we read.
Good to hear you, Sailor of Fortune. We lost contact with you for several days. Did you find Earhart's plane?
Bruce looks at Sky before responding on the radio. Sky repeats words she used during her fiery science fair pitch, clutching the pendant around her neck as she speaks to her father.
Shall we keep searching? We know where to look. A team of experts could be made ready to embark on an expedition, armed with advanced underwater technology. It's not just about solving a mystery, it's about honoring Amelia Earhart's legacy.
Bruce smiles and keys the radio to respond, looking warmly at his daughter.
Sailor of Fortune to Coast Guard, it's still out there, waiting to be found. Beat.
Bruce releases the radio key, still looking at Sky.
But we did discover another adventurous female pilot.
Sky runs across the salvage ship's bridge to her father, embracing him with a warm hug.
Your mother would be proud. I'm proud.
Exterior Pacific Ocean. Fly over Sailor of Fortune ship, day. We are left with a similar overhead view of the vast Pacific as seen in the opening scene. Surrounded by a deep blue ocean, we see the Sailor of Fortune underway on a heading to Honolulu, Amelia's planned destination after Howland. Super. In his official report, the commanding officer of the Colorado Captain Wilhelm F. Friedel summarized Lieutenant Lambrecht's observations stating that no one was seen on either Gardner Island or McKean Island, and no dwellings appeared on Gardner or any other signs of inhabitation. Fade out.